Welcome into the DNR Report. Dave Meyer, Reeves Mitchell. Reeves, we have an important basketball game tonight. It's the reeling Oklahoma Sooners take on the reeling Kansas State Wildcats up in the Octagon, a place that has not been kind to OU basketball, Reeves. Man, look, I was out of pocket last week. I was able to kind of keep track of the games here and there. The Texas game just looked like a complete debacle in the second half. That's about the best way I could sum that up. Everything we talked about that could be problematic for this team looked like it happened in the second half. They got bogged down in the half court. Shots weren't falling. Texas was red hot. Texas Tech, on the other hand, seemed to be a very winnable game in the second half. They just did not have the oomph to get over the hump and finish it out, Reeves.
Yeah, the Texas and the Tech games were kind of different to me in that in the Tech game, man, in that second half, OU was making shots. I mean, Milos Uzan, Soares, they stepped up with some big threes in that half. I think OU finished with 11 threes for the game. Just really the difference in that game was they couldn't stop Tech down the stretch, man. I mean, Tech's guards just were feasting from the three-point line. They were getting wherever they wanted to go. And then Dave, I mean, I hate to say it, but we may have a Javion McCollum problem on our hands.
Yeah.
He has not looked like the same player during conference play. Versus Texas Tech, Dave, he finished 2 for 11 overall. I mean, that's not going to win you many games. And the thing with him, Dave, is that he's really only going to help OU on the court when he's scoring. You know, maybe he gets some assists here and there, but I'm saying this because he's not a guy that's going to lock down the opposing starting point guard. You know, he's not going to get steals. He's not going to get blocks. No, he's out there to strictly to score the basketball, Dave. And when he's not doing
Right.
that, a lot of problems arise for this team.
Yeah, you bring up some interesting points. I think I heard there was something like he let a guard blow by him for a layup in the Texas Tech game. Porter was not happy with him and went through individual drills, specifically with McCollum. Regarding that, that's a bad look, man. It's a bad look for the team, for the locker room. You don't want your best players to kind of exude that kind of attitude. And when he starts having that attitude, you wonder if it creeps into the other guys. That's why this game to me is really important, Reeves. I don't think they're going to win it, but they at least have to show up and make a fight out of this tonight.
Yeah, I would agree. And guys like McCollum, man, he's just got to find a way to impact the game other than scoring. And I know he's out there to score. He's got to shoot better for than 2 for 11. That's the bottom line. But Dave, when the shots aren't falling, we know great players, they find ways to impact the game no matter what, whether it be defense, whether it be getting assists, whether it be just moving the ball well. He's got to find a way to be a presence out there that's beneficial to this OU team because right now, Dave, when he's not shooting very well, it's almost like should they just put someone else in over him, even though he's OU's leading scorer?
Yeah, I mean, does he become a liability, man? If he's out
Yeah.
there and he's not scoring, I don't know what else really he'd be out there for. So, yeah, interesting point there, man. Beyond that, the supporting cast, what do they do? 'Cause you know these teams in the Big 12 typically have defenses good enough to lock down one really good player. They have done that with McCollum. Soares has played really well. Maybe McCollum break out of this funk, man. They need it because right now, look, like I said, Texas, yeah, that's a gut punch. You hate
Shit. I think you froze there.
I was looking at your face for a while. You weren't changed. I thought you were just being really still. Uh, Reeves, man, look, the Texas Tech loss, that is a gut punch. You accept Texas, that happens. Texas Tech, you have the thing won with, 6 minutes to go. I forgot they're up 9, 10 points at home. That's two really good crowds. They seem to kind of have wasted. So tonight is going to be a big gut check. What kind of character does this team have? Is what we saw with McCollum. Does that carry over? How good is this locker room? What's the cohesiveness like? We're going to find out a lot tonight.
Yeah, we're gonna find out a ton. And I mean, Dave, this is the K-State team I kind of think is at a similar spot as OU. I mean, I know OU's still in the rankings as of now, but man, you kind of foresee down the road when we're talking about how many Big 12 teams are going to get into this tournament at the end. You could see OU and K State being on that same line of kind of bubble teams when it's all said and done. So obviously, every matchup versus them is going to be extremely important. It'd be awesome to go 2-0 versus them, but going to be very tough tonight, obviously, in a place they have struggled historically. But yeah, I agree with you. The role players need to step up. And what's sad about that Texas Tech game, man, they did get some good performances from a few of the role guys. I mean, Dave, John Hughley was hitting some threes. Raldo Soares, man, had 15 plus points. I mean, he was playing very well.
God won a really good game too.
Godwin, pretty good game. The thing with him, Dave, is he's been getting in foul trouble early in games. He's been picking up that second foul, very early in the first half, and it's kind of changed how Porter is, using this rotation right now. So he's got a big matchup tonight. I don't know who's going to guard Kaluma,
Yeah.
K-State big man. I would expect Jalen Moore to start on him, Dave, because he's not a traditional big man in that he's not going to bang you down low all game. He averages 4 threes a game, Dave. He's taken, I think, 87 on the year already. So he's looking to hoist from three. He also likes to blow by guys on the dribble, get to the hole, off that pump fake from the three. So doesn't seem like a great matchup for Sam Godwin. Seems like more of a matchup for an athletic guy like Jalen Moore. But Dave, I mean, if he's able to defend him well, close out well on those 3-point attempts, then that opens up the transition game for OU because he can instantly fly down the court. And we know how good he is, when he has a head of steam out there coast to coast. So I think he's the matchup for Kaluma tonight, but it's going to be tough. You really have to make sure he doesn't get hot from three, Dave, because it just opens up the entire floor for K State when their big guys are hitting triples.
Dude, I've been screaming it. Put Jalen Moore in at the five all season. I love the idea. Let's see what the guy can do. That brings up another point, Reeves. The backbone of this entire team, really all season long, has been defense. The on-the-ball defense has been really good. The last two games, for whatever reason, they have not. What is going on there? My dogs agree with what we're talking about. I don't understand really what happened there. I mean, Texas has some good athletes. I know Texas Tech is pretty good as well, but it seems like the defense that they've leaned on this season, for whatever reason, it just went away this week.
Yeah, and Porter Moser talked about that in his post-game press conference after the Tech game. He just said, I thought we defended well for the majority of that game, but he said when it got down to crunch time, our bad habits started to creep back in. That's when we started to play some lackadaisical defense almost. So it's interesting, man. I mean, you've got to be firing on all cylinders on both sides of the ball because we saw versus Texas, the reason they lost in that second half was they couldn't score, simply put enough. I mean, they just could not put the ball in the basket. And then versus Tech, you are scoring, but you can't get a stop on the other end. So, Dave, somehow they have to figure out a way to put it all together. I mean, a good thing for this team is they've played pretty well on the road this year. I mean, that Cincinnati game was a really good road win. They've had some good performances, but again, man, this is a very tough place to play. K State's a solid team. They're reeling a little bit, Dave. So, like I said, they're in a similar spot as OU. I think they're going into this game saying this is a must win for us. OU should be saying that as well, but you always got to favor the home team in this conference to a certain extent.
Yeah, you do, unless it's Oklahoma, right? This week. Yeah, I agree with you, Reeves. I think, did you watch any of the Texas Houston in the last night or overtime?
I watched in overtime, but I was watching the Thunder during
Yeah.
regular.
I think the intensity that Houston played with on the road, that is what Oklahoma needs to find. They really need to match that tonight. This is a must win for Oklahoma. You cannot go 0-3 with a three-game losing streak, head into a place in Orlando that's not going to be an easy win, Reeves, as they've already knocked off Kansas, UCF, I'm talking about. So this is as close to a must win for Oklahoma basketball under Porter Moser that I can remember because it seems like year three was kind of that's the move the needle point that we should be seeing progress. The fan base wants to see progress. Making the NCAA tournament would signal that. But in order to do that, tonight to me is vital.
It's very vital, man. And before the season, when we saw this at UCF game, we probably would have looked past it and said, "Oh, I mean, that's a winnable game for OU." And
1,000%.
I still think it is a winnable game. But on the same note, Dave, you go out there tonight in Manhattan and you get blown out by 20, and then you're
Yeah.
going into UCF on Saturday with that hanging over your head.
Yeah,
It's not a good look, man. It's not good for team morale. It's just not good for the overall confidence of the program. So I do agree with you. I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat it and say, hey, play them close tonight. They just need to play them close. They need to win, if we're being honest. They need to win this
agreed.
fight. But you are right in that you can't go out there and lose by 20, man. You can't. You have got to keep it
No,
close.
I think that would signal a couple things that happens. I think that would maybe start people start to question, has he lost the locker room, especially after the Javion McCollum, instance. If they go up and lay an egg coming off two back-to-back losses at home with really good crowds, that's going to start to get out there, man. Does he have control of the team, or have they quit on the season? That seems weird to say when they're sitting 15-5, Reeves, but this was a bad week. I mean, like I said, if you split it 1-1 with Texas and Tech, you can live with it. And I think they're in the same position this week. If you split it 1-1, you can live with it. But that has to start somewhere, because
Yeah.
right now it's all bad for Oklahoma. So tonight, I'm with you. I said earlier, look, go up and put up a fight, and that'll be good. No, I agree. Tonight is a must win for Oklahoma basketball.
No doubt. Another K-State guy to look out for, Dave. I think he's number 3, Tyler Perry, point guard for them. He's a transfer from North Texas. He struggled a little bit in conference play, but he is a really, really good player. I'm interested to see if Porter puts Uzon or McCollum on him. I'm leaning towards Uzon because obviously McCollum pretty dreadful on defense versus Texas Tech. So I'm not sure you want to match him up with a really good scorer like Perry. But Dave, he's a guy I watched him a lot at North Texas last year. They actually played Oklahoma State in the NIT last year. He had like 35 points in that game in Gallagher Iba. And he's a guy
Wow.
I really wanted OU to target in the portal. I think they did. They ended up getting McCollum, who's a great player, but this is a guy to look out for, especially with, it seems like OU lately, they've been struggling guarding these really good guards, Dave. Versus Texas,
Mhm.
Max Asmus was really able to get it going. Versus our backcourt, obviously Weaver, that kid off the bench, he came in and was instant offense versus OU. And then versus Tech, Dave, they had a kid off the bench score 24 on 6 threes. And then Pop Isaacs, their starting point guard, had a pretty solid game as well. So OU's backcourt needs to pick it up offensively. But Dave, I think even more importantly, they've got to start playing some defense because the catalysts for these teams they're playing, which are the 1 and the 2 guards, they are really torching OU right now. So got to find a way to, get some steals, get some non-efficient games from the opposing team's 1 and 2 guards.
Yeah, what have we said all season, man? You got to get out in transition. You got to play really good pressure on the ball defense, and that has been the case up until now. So it may be just some mental lapses going on. Yeah, Tyler Perry, when they lost to Houston by 22 points, put up 3 points. So
Wasn't
it
good.
yeah, it seems like he's boom or bust. I guarantee you tonight he'll be boom big time against Oklahoma. But we've talked about a lot of negatives going on. Let's bring up some positives, Reeves. Like I said, they're still 15-5. Still better, I think, than people thought coming in. They were picked, I think, to finish 12th in the Big 12, so they're doing better than people thought. And they still have, really good athletes. We just haven't really seen that translate in conference play to wins and points. And all that being said, against Texas Tech, you make free throws, you win the game.
Yep.
As bad as they played, you do the simplest things that you don't do, and boy, they add up to big things that'll get you beat.
So, I mean, looking at the conference standings overall, I mean, gun to your head scenario, how many teams are you thinking get in this conference, Dave? Because right now, you know, UCF and Texas are 9 and 10 in the conference at 3 and 4 in conference apiece. But I mean, both those teams have shown they can beat the upper echelon of this conference. I mean, Texas had Houston on the ropes last night. Obviously, they had a very good win in Norman too, and then UCF beat KU at home. So, are you
Right.
thinking 10 teams get in this conference?
Well, I mean, I'm looking 1 through 10 right now. You have to go past nine to get to a team that has more than five losses in this entire league. I
Crazy,
mean, that
crazy.
unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, BYU, Baylor, you have to assume they're in. Kansas State, TCU, of course, Kansas, Iowa State, Houston, Texas Tech, Texas sitting down there at number 11th in the league, at 3-4 overall in conference. You have to assume they make it. So, look, there are no gimmies in this league, and there is no gimme or guarantee Oklahoma makes the tournament, especially the way they're playing right now. That would have sounded crazy to say a couple weeks ago, but like we said, y'all, this is a must-win game tonight in Manhattan.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty shocked they kept OU in the rankings, especially at
I was too.
3. I mean, a team like TCU's at 25, and TCU beat OU, so kind of interesting on the rankings there. Now, OU had a very good non-conference. They've had some solid wins this year, Dave, but versus these elite teams, they got to start racking up some wins. I mean, I think we'd be talking a lot differently about this team if they had not won that game against Iowa State, first game in conference.
And is speaking as to why they're ranked still, that's probably it right there, the way Iowa State has played since they lost in Norman. But you
Incredible.
know, they're just Texas Tech. That one I keep going back to. Look, Texas, yeah, it sucks to lose to them, but you accept that it's a rivalry game. Then you come back to Texas Tech. It's a Saturday in Norman with a great crowd and coming off a loss. That's one that you typically expect Oklahoma to win, and they let that one go. I have a bad feeling that that's going to stick around and kind of weigh on this team moving forward.
Yeah, no doubt. They need to pick up some big wins down the stretch. I mean, I know they're in the rankings right now for all the people listening, but on the same note, it is not a lock they make the tournament. They've got to pick up some more big wins. I think we previewed that game pretty well, Dave. It should be a good one tonight. But I just wanted to get into the Thunder for a second.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on the game last night? I mean, I know they're on a little bit of a skid right now. That Timberwolves team is really good defensively, and Dave, that was the first game. I kind of watched Chet and I was like, he seems uncomfortable out there. He seems to a point where not even that he needs to get bigger, but he needs to refine some of his offensive moves. He needs to just figure it out to a certain extent. And again, being guarded by Rudy Gobert, who's a 3-time defensive
Yes.
year, that's no easy task. So I'm not trying to put the kid down. He's a tremendous player. And I'm on record saying I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer at the end of his career. I'm just saying he has some kinks to figure out right now because he was a little bit exposed last night. The whole Thunder team was exposed to a certain extent last night, I thought.
Yeah, we'll call this one the Dort report, man. If they're going to keep doing well when they're hot, you know what you're going to get out of Lou Dort defensively every night, right? He's always going to
Is it
be there.
worth it? Is it worth it for an 0 for 8?
That's what yeah, I'm getting around to that. I mean, I think I saw between him and Chet last night, they were like 2 of 16, two
Yeah.
of 18. Yeah, I mean, horrible
Or
night. And they're not going to win when you have that combination. So I thought last night was the first time I really saw Chet kind of apprehensive to be the guy,
yeah.
right? Shea was doing his thing, but once J-Dub got hurt, I kind of saw Chet like, nah, I'm not really sure if I should distribute or score. Dude, with a skill set the way he's got, go score, be the guy. He just has to believe he can do it. And last night, I was kind of the first time I saw him maybe questioning that. Look, we're overreacting a touch. It's 2 games. The Pistons loss was freaking terrible. I don't care what was going on. Bad loss there. Last night, not so much, man. I mean, the T-Wolves and Thunder kind of remind me of the old Grizzlies Thunder matchups with
Yeah.
Kevin Durant,
That's a good
Westbrook,
comparison.
just
That's a good comparison.
gritty. They're almost throwing bows. I really want to see this 7 game series between the two. I think we're going to probably in Minnesota the way things are looking. But no, I mean J-Dub's injury, of course, going to play into it. But Chet, they need more of Chet. Need a lot more from Dort scoring.
Yeah, I agree. I just, man, watching that game last night, I couldn't help but think to myself, is this kind of the end of the Dort era in Oklahoma City to a certain extent? I know they just signed him to the 5-year, 74 million, I think it was. I mean, I know he's one of the premier elite defenders in this league, and that does not, you should not take that away from him. That's very key, especially when you get in a 7-game series
Right,
against a team like the T Wolves, who you need a guy to shut down Anthony Edwards. Like you
right.
have to have a guy like that. But Dave, on the same note, we know how basketball works nowadays. You cannot just be a strictly offensive or defensive player. I mean,
No,
you have to do everything, especially if you're a role player. Now, there's certain guys like a guy like Shea, not saying he's bad on defense, but if he's giving you 35, 40 points, you don't expect much else out of him. But a guy like Dort, who's a role player, Dave, he has to give you offense too. It's not enough just for him to guard the best player and hang his hat on that. He has to knock down some threes. He has to make some drives. He has to get the offense going because you have to have 5 guys out there that can score. So just watching that game last night, I don't know if he really fits into the long term plan. If I'm being honest with you.
yeah, I mean it's tough to say. I know that the Thunder organization they value defense, and
No
boy does
doubt.
he have it. But again, if that's all you've got, and you're kind of a liability, it's like bouncing back to McCollum. If he's not scoring, he's a defensive liability. Well, if Dort isn't scoring, he's an offensive liability out there, and that you're enabling the defense you're playing to basically play 5-on-4 if they don't have to worry about a guy. And right now, that's Lou Dort. So if they're going to keep it going, he has to kind of. He's always been kind of streaky, kind of spotty, but he's got to get back in a groove where he's at least providing 10 to 15 a night.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. And the last thing I'll bring up, I mean, we overrated this team to a certain extent after they beat the Celtics, after they beat the Clippers. They had some very good wins. I think people are already crowning them already going to be the number one seed in the West. Hey, they're championship contenders, which again, you can call them championship contenders. I get it. You have a top seven, probably top five player in the NBA in Shea. So
Right.
I get it. You have a blossoming star in Chet and J-Dub. But again, watching that game last night, and it's not time to go all in my opinion. This is not the season. I would probably lean towards next year to where if you want to make a blockbuster move, that's when you make it. But Dave, I'm kind of thinking they're going to need to make a trade at the deadline, whether it be for a backup big just to give Chet some help down low, or whether it be for another scorer off the bench, Dave, because I mean, trust me, I love Isaiah Joe. I love, Aaron Wiggins. I think those guys are really solid players. But in a series, when you need a guy off the bench to come in and give you 15 points,
Yeah.
it's not always going to happen with those guys. We've seen the games where Joe goes 1 for 6, 1 for 7. He's a volume shooter. Same with Wiggins. I don't think he's going to give you 15 in a playoff series. An interesting mock trade I saw was the Thunder potentially bringing Dennis Schroeder back from Toronto. He used to play for the
Ooh.
Thunder, as most of
Yeah.
our listeners know. In that trade, they had to give up some picks and I think Wiggins, which sucks because I really like Wiggins,
I do too.
and maybe another guy. But yeah, I don't know, Dave. I mean, and I'm not saying they need to go all in, treat this like the championship season, but still, I think you need to get Shea and J Dub some help for the playoffs because they're going to need a third scorer if Chet has some dud games like he did last night.
Yeah, I don't hate the idea of Schroeder coming back. We know he can put the ball in the basket. I think that Chet needs some help down low, and I think last night kind of exposed that, man. When you've got him down low against guys, like Cat and Gobert,
It's tough.
he's tall. He just doesn't have the girth, right? And he does get bullied around some. I mean, a big that can stretch the floor, that can step out and pop a three. I think that is what the Thunder needs to target in the trade deadline because that opens everything up for all the other guys. Plus, gives Chet some help down low. Just I'm trying to think of like the perfect guy from the past that can come to mind. I'm
I mean, like if
like an Al Horford.
yeah, Al Horford
Like
would
an
be
Al Horford, yeah, would be perfect on this team.
a prime Serge Ibaka would fit this team so perfectly. If they could
Yes.
get what Serge Ibaka used to be, obviously, I don't even think he may be rotting away on an NBA bench this year, but he's well past his prime.
Yeah.
But you remember the years where he figured out that 3-point shot, but he was still blocking shots down low. He'd be a perfect
Yes.
guy, if this was 5 years ago. Yeah, I agree. I think they need some more depth down low, man, because
Yep.
Head's playing a lot of minutes right now. And if you do get matched up versus a team like the Timberwolves, oh, that's a tough series for him. I mean, we saw it in the play-in last year as well. They're just not a good matchup for the Thunder overall.
No, they're not, and it's because what we're talking about, right? I mean, down low, the Thunder don't have the depth to keep up with that, and not only does Minnesota have it, they're really talented. It's not just guys they're bringing up. I mean, these are all-star contenders.
I
So,
mean, Dave, they
yeah,
didn't play Mike Conley last night. I think he was hurt, but he's the
yeah,
guy you fit into the rotation that has playoff experience that, you know,
right.
that's a guy you want in the playoffs. So they're a really good team. I wouldn't go as far to say I think they're going to make the finals or anything. I just don't trust a guy like Gobert in the playoffs because we've seen him get exposed so many times. If you ever face a stretch five, a guy that can really knock down the three, like you're saying the Thunder need, that's where Gobert isn't as, beneficial
Right.
to the Wolves because now he has to go out to the 3-point line, guard there, and then you look down low and there's no, shot blocker down low anymore. You
Right.
can catch him out. So there's certain matchups for the T Wolves, I would say, help them a lot. I think the Thunder are a really good matchup for them. But, if they face a team that can really shoot it, like maybe even like Dallas, who can really
Yeah.
spread out, that's not a good matchup for them. So It'll be interesting to see what Presti does. I mean, Dave, we've learned being Thunder fans our whole lives. You have to trust in Presti because he's the
Agreed.
reason we are at this point right now. He's going to make the right decision. All we can do is speculate.
And I think, conversely, if the Thunder do make a move and it happens to fit what we're talking about, I think the Thunder could be a bad matchup for the T-Wolves because of what you're talking about. If you can draw Gobert out
Yeah.
and get that shot blocker away, then that opens up everything for J-Dub, guys like Shea. So it's going to be interesting to watch, man. I'm glad they don't suck anymore, and I'm glad we have something to talk about with them. They're in contention. Those were really bad years, and I can't imagine doing this during that. But we got to wrap this up because we got to post it, man. We got to get this out for everybody to hear what's going on and understand why what's happening is happening and listen to our greatness. So
But
for Reeves Mitchell,
give me a prediction on the game tonight, though. OU.
okay, well, first I was going to say, like, yeah, there's, in fact, on air today on the franchise, I told Dylan there's no shot. I said OU will lose. So I got to stick with that, man. I don't believe it. I really hope I'm wrong, but I'm going to go Kansas State 67, Oklahoma 58.
Okay, well, you're right on the spread. I think it's a 3-point spread. So
Okay.
here's Vegas on that one. Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I mean, I really want to pick OU in this game because it's a spot where they have to win, and I think they're gonna come out with some fire tonight. But Dave, you can say the same thing about K-State. I mean, they're
Yeah.
playing the same fire going into this game, so I have to favor the home team. I think it'll be low scoring, to be honest with you. I'll go 62-58 K-State, win by 4.
I like it, Reeves. I don't like it. I hope we're both wrong, and we'll be back to talk about it regardless. But all right, man. Well, I'll tweet at you during the game. We'll get this up for everybody to see for Dave Meyer, Reeves Mitchell, and my noisy dogs from the man cave here at the Meyer household. We were talk to you guys down the road.